Welcome back to this week's installment of Cute Shocked Miorine Faces. Sorry, I just realized this is a thing, and it seems like a thing. Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch of Mercury, episode 16 is one of those episodes where it feels like nothing happens, but yet a whole bunch of crap happens. Not that nothing happens, but just nothing moves. It's really an episode where it feels like a lot of setup. We are establishing now that they are going to be replacing the president. The front is mad. They're obviously going to start stepping into the Benneret group. They don't want that. And so we have the presidential runs coming up, and really, like I said, kind of situating who all's going to be following who, and yes, technically bringing Ghoul into the picture, which I have a theory on that one, and I'll get into in a minute, but yes, a lot of manipulation of Miorine in this episode. Honestly, it really did feel like a lot of the episode is around kind of Prospera sort of nudging her in a direction, which eventually does come up to the ending part where, yes, we establish Prospera is going to want to use Miorine to control the company. And I think it was pretty much an obvious thing the moment that she confronted Miorine from the very beginning. Delling is going to get knocked out of the way eventually. I want to use Miorine to get to Delling. And then it kind of turned into the thing where Delling gets injured, and now she can use Miorine to pretty much control the company itself, and thus pretty much put into effect Quiet Zero. Now, yes, the very beginning of the episode is the big crucial part here, because we're establishing through the conversation between Belle and Prospera that, yes, like I predicted in the last episode, they're planning on actually making the code of Edict sort of get dispersed with Quiet Zero. They have pretty much put all of her biometric data into code. That code was placed into Ariel. She establishes that if anything happens to Ariel, Edict is gone. So what better way to, protect her data than to just pretty much broadcast it everywhere? She wants Edict to be everywhere. It's kind of interesting that she even notes the fact that currently Edict is just permanent particles now. Like, she doesn't exist. She's just these permanent particles, and she wants to disperse that, like I said before. Which, since I kind of went through all that stuff before, I don't need to go over it again, but yeah, interesting that she wants to get Belle on board, and my gosh, Belle this entire episode, I understand her conflict. I mean, she's literally breaking down, but this is one of those things where it's like, you've been dealing with this for a long time. Why is suddenly now it's all suddenly weighing on her, and we have to see her in every scene whining about what she's done? Belle is sort of turned into the fanatic. That's really what they kind of turn into, and that's the big struggle with the story overall with Belle's introduction, is the idea that she is sort of the thing that's still pulling us through line through the story. This desire, she wanted to make this live on, and it's not living on. It is turning into a weapon. Her love was the original concept of the gun arm, the idea of helping medically with this technology, and she's been staying on the sideline, helping Pill Industries, doing terrible experiments on humans, all to be able to keep pushing towards this one goal. And now it's all falling apart, and it's falling upon her, and she doesn't like it. And that's what Prospera can use against her, and that's what, obviously, Elan is using against her. But now, Prospera's big goal right now is to get Suletta to permit score 8, which she's already achieved 6. So she's just 2 away from being able to basically apply to Quiet Zero. The question mark is Quiet Zero ready to go? I mean, they're working with Quiet Zero. They've been sending equipment there, and again, all they need is permit score 8, and is that just, we're good to go? Sticker in the machine, and let's broadcast the code everywhere? That's the question mark. It was nice to finally see Miorine go back to the Earthian house. It was a nice little reunion. It didn't last very long, but at least it was a little more cozier than I thought it would be. Her showing up and apparently looking into Nika, which through Fang learns about the fact that Nika is not with the front. She has been captured by somebody else disguising themselves as the front management group. They're not even involved. And interesting to get a little bit more insight into Fang themselves in mentioning the idea that the front is going to come and do something with the Benneret group. And so their organization, their association is sort of working as a mediator. They're trying to, I guess, soften what's coming up. I haven't really got a full idea of what Fang's doing. She's obviously always been investigating the Benneret group. She was investigating them through Miorine for quite a while, helping Miorine with her escape. But it seems like she is sort of trying to soften the blow of what could possibly come up, this collapse that is, or this war that is possibly going to come up. So I'll be interested to see what they end up doing with her. It seems like she's more interested in what Prospera is doing. Mentioning specifically, we're seeing that there's a lot of money going into repairing this Gundam, and additionally, they're sending stuff to Plant Quetta. So she knows what's going on in the background, and so I think that's she assumes, I guess, that that's where the worst problem is. So she's like, let me be able to look inside your facility. I need to look into this Shinsi something. Prospera's company. But no, it's so funny because like Miorine first shows up and everybody's kind of happy. They're kind of hanging out. They're throwing a whole bunch of stuff onto her plate. They're happy that she's there and everything. And she's even got a smile going on. Miorine for once has a smile going on. But no, at some point it's like, oh, and now Suletta wants to talk to her, and it's like, oh, how sweet, finally the two of them back together, and then Prospera walks in the door, and it's like everything just goes to stink. It's like, I don't know what Prospera's plan was to walk through the door and be like, oh, and I'm the mother, and everybody's like, oh, it's the mother. No, it literally stinks the mood. But yeah, this obviously leads up to pretty much the thing that I've been kind of building up with the recent, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 impressions videos, is sort of having Miorine finally acknowledge that Suletta is... So Miorine's still in a mindset that Suletta is a puppet. But I still think it's more of a fact that Suletta is literally brainwashed. And that Miorine isn't angry at Suletta for what happened. But she ends up getting angry with Suletta in the idea that Suletta smiles about it. She's happy about it. She's fine with it. She's not troubled by it. Which is a great... This is what I wanted. When that first scene happened and she said something really nasty to Suletta, it didn't make any sense. And here even Miorine is saying, I said something I shouldn't have. You saved me. I should have thanked you. I'm sorry. And then Suetta's like, but it worked out. It's just like Mother said. If I do this, you'll be saved and everybody's happy. And then she smiles, and that bugs Miorine. To the point where she asks, you'll do anything your mother tells you, right? Well, pretty much anything. Yeah, I mean, she never led her wrong. Okay, would you kill people for her? And she pauses for quite a bit, but she still says, yeah. She's never steered me wrong. Why would I not? And that bugs Miorine enough to go confront Prospera and pretty much tell her, leave her alone. Which is interesting. This is a very, very interesting scene because she tells Prospera, you know, leave Suletta alone. You're using her as a puppet. She's like, okay, well, if I don't use her, are you going to use her? Just like your father did. Now, that was a really weird line. I really do think this is probably mistranslation or something. But it's sort of... she's like, have your way with Suletta just like your father did. Or at least maybe what her father's plans were. I think that's probably what it's kind of insinuating here. Okay, well, I'll stop using her, but Delling still has plans for her, which is Quiet Zero. So we're already kind of establishing here that Delling already has Suletta in his targets, which that's probably what it's meaning there. And so it does come to the bigger question or the bigger scope here of, you know, you don't realize I'm after your dad. Like, just, I thought that you were told this. Like, she says something effective like, I thought the... I forget what his name is. I think he's the cathedral guy. I thought that he told you all this stuff. So let me tell you, yeah, I'm after your dad. He destroyed my family. Now, I still don't think Delling made those orders. There's a possibility that he did. He's a military guy. He just joined this corporation. All he knows is brute force. And maybe he did send a group in and took out that whole institute. But I sort of wonder if somebody else was in the background pulling the strings and turned it violent. But he could have. Either way, these are the sins of his past, and that's what Prospera sees. He took my husband, took my colleagues, took everything from me. And in effect, I'm surprised he didn't mention it, in effect, took away Edict. Because Edict couldn't last in space. It destroyed her. And that's sort of what they're implying is the idea of why she eventually turned Edict into Ariel. She couldn't last there. But yes, it all leads to her saying, look, we have a cool resolve here. You're just going to work for me, and you're going to become the president. I need you in place of Suletta. If you don't want me to use Suletta, then I'll use you. Become president. You can do it. You have the backing. You are the tragic. Basically, the media and everything. They're painting it to the media and everything that this is some tragic accident or something that happened to Delling. This terrorist group attacked and harmed Delling, took out another member. You are the tragic bloodline of Delling. They'll back you. Prospera is always thinking manipulation and manipulating not only Miorine, but everybody. So it's a really cool direction to take that, even though it's always Prospera in the middle, kind of grinning every 2 seconds. Prospera has been turning into this little grin gremlin that I'm sort of getting tired of. I sort of like how clever she is, and she's always in the right place at the right time, but there is a side of me that's sort of kind of getting tired of her. I almost want to have somebody else there pulling some strings. Granted, everybody in the Bennett group's pulling strings. Let me be perfectly clear there. There's a few interesting things on the sideline. Obviously, Elan trying to steal the Gundam. And he's sent by the Peel Institute to go steal it because they know where it's at. And he arrives there and, of course, yes, tries to activate it. Wouldn't activate. He, of course, mentioned the fact that 4 was able to activate this, so why not me? And as he's trying to get into it, obviously, it finally activates, and Edix shows up and says, get out of here. It's got its own security system with a bunch of cute little girls kind of swarming in on you and making you feel pain. Yes, that's apparently Ariel's car alarm, I guess, in a sense. But it is interesting to kind of note here that it's specifically pointing out that 4 was able to activate this. Yeah, technically when Suletta was there, 4 was driving it around. But I think that's because he wasn't a threat. He was a threat, technically, but he wasn't a threat at the time. Or maybe the fact that because Suletta was there, it kind of didn't trigger anything. But Elan, the original Elan, that's a different story. Yes, Gul returned. He comes into the company, sees his brother, or Lotta, technically. Lotta just completely collapses out of relief. Noting the idea that obviously Lotta has been trying to keep the company afloat while, the father died and Gil was gone. He's been trying to keep everything afloat and never getting a chance to actually mourn the death of his father. But it's interesting because Gil here says, okay, I'll take care of everything. Show me the paperwork. Let's get to work, get to the desk, start writing stuff down. No, he just walks away. He says he'll handle it. And now the interesting thing is, and this is where I'm going with here, at some point it specifically goes out of its way to point out that everybody's leaving. Everybody's leaving the academy. This big attack happened and everybody's afraid and parents are coming and taking the kids away. But there's still some people hanging out. Like Cecilia, the other member of her house is still there. And it points out the fact that somebody has to be here for if there's any duels. And specifically that she's hanging out for the next duel that is important, which apparently is Felsi Rollo. It says specifically that the princess's birthday is coming up, and somebody needs to be there to see who will become her groom, implying that Rollo is going to have a duel on her birthday and somebody's going to become her bride or groom. Now, this seems a little bit too convenient to have this placed in here at the same time you have Gul coming in and saying that he's going to handle everything. And specifically the fact that they're pointing out that she is a princess. Now, I don't know if that's just casual, just snarky comments saying, oh yeah, she's a princess. They like to call a lot of characters in this story princesses and princesses and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean royalty, but it doesn't necessarily mean some sort of importance. So it makes me wonder is Rollo important? And if she has a duel coming up for her groom, and Gul's showing up, and he's got to pretty much claim some sort of power and handle the situation, does it have something to do with Rollo? That's the question mark. Is he going to defeat her? Pair the two of them together. She's a part of the Jet Turk house. She's been following Gul everywhere. It's obvious that she probably does like Gul, but I don't know. That'd be an interesting direction to take it, that she's somehow important and him marrying her is going to make him somehow important. Hopefully it doesn't just turn into Gul thinks he's going to fix the situation by beating Suletta again. Let's stop the whole let's try to beat Suletta. It is interesting because it is sort of downplaying a lot of this stuff now because everybody's leaving. They have a change of president. Obviously, Miorion's no longer the trophy wife because Delling's not currently present. A lot of things is shifting in the story. It feels like we're getting rid of the dueling stuff. It's probably still going to be present. Obviously, we're talking about Rollo having one. We're changing powers. We're focusing on the presidency. We're focusing on the Bennett group and who's kind of watching it. Obviously, the Bennett group is pretty much at the end of what's sort of allowed. Front's starting to look at them. The Earthians are getting angry. There's a lot of rioting happening. Something has to shift significantly. And I think it's probably going to turn down to Miorine stepping up on a stage and saying how everything's been going a little bit crazy. It's time to settle down. Let's get things back to normal. Is it going to turn into her trying to revive the concept of the gun arm, the original idea of it benefiting mankind rather than being a weapon, and that's going to pull people in just for Prospera to use her. That's a long spiel to say that I'm excited to see what comes up next. A lot of crazy stuff happening. Really interested to see where it goes from here. Hopefully it doesn't get too kind of bogged down with the whole election thing. I think that could probably be a more boring aspect. Just a lot of people trying to gain favor of people, and that sometimes works out. I mean, they haven't let me down in the series yet, so I don't think it's going to turn out bad, but we'll see. But that's my thoughts on episode 16 of Gundam the Witch of Mercury. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's the the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Just if you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks button down below, as well as a membership button. I greatly appreciate what it does, and y'all take care.